Yun received a phone call waking him up from his sleep in the morning. Unexpectedly, coming from beyond the receiver was the voice of a beautiful woman. "This is CTS Media Incorporated. We have deposited the amount of the current successful bid to the auction into your account. You can confirm on the item trading site, and please do not hesitate to contact us." However, the moment he accessed the site, his auction post floated on the main screen of the item trading site. The auction's successful bid amount was, as she said, 3,090,000,000 won. He pinched his flesh until blood could be seen, unmistakably reality, and managed not to faint only because of his grim tenacity. "If this is a dream, I hope I never wake up." The auction itself was newsworthy, which was exactly what CTS Media aimed for. "This here is the money I earned." His grandma rubbed her dim eyes a couple of times while looking at the bank book. After several days they obtained a new house and received treatment at the hospital. When Lee Yun's parents passed away, he inherited the 100 million won debt. The money was owed by his father and his grandma, who did not apply the waiver of inheritance in court within 3 months, and the legacy was inherited. With help from the caregivers, they quietly slipped out. But nothing good ever came from those men. "I will repay the debt," he said. Lee Yun did not know how much debt he was in until he saw the calculation report. "Poor grandma has been injured and hospitalized, but she sure looks comfortable in the hospital. Much like your little sister in the hallway," said the gang members as they laughed with a smirk. "It costs money just to file bankruptcy. Even if you had the money, you can't seriously believe the loan sharks would leave you alone to file for bankruptcy. Because the money has been paid, you guys think this is the end of things. But what if this family of 3 was admitted to the hospital all at once?" The men were about to laugh when they saw Lee Yun's eyes, and their laughter died before ever coming out. "We have already collected the money. Don't do anything unnecessary," the leader of the loan sharks said. "Do you really want to make a scene in a hospital?" After being robbed to the tune of 3 million won, Lee Yun did not have the strength to do anything. He was slammed by extreme emptiness, but on the 3rd day after being robbed, he stood up. In the evening he studied about virtual reality games and how the game system worked. Because the house contract was already set, 50 million won was set aside. Able to cancel, but he would have to pay a penalty. For every profession, city and skill, Lee Yun made analysis tables and pinned them onto the walls of his room. The virtual reality game at the end was as expected, Royal Road. Possessing more than 75% of the world's game market share, more than 90% of Korean gamers played this game. When Lee Yun was connected to Royal Road, the first sound that reached his ears was a feminine voice. He looked around to see who had spoken to him, but there was no one else. A space within the universe. A new player begins his adventure in a capital or a major city of comparable size. Your stats in class shall be determined while you are playing Royal Road. The citadel of Saraborg, Rosenheim Kingdom. Similar to where Weed is starting out. His senses were consistent with reality, yet people around him were clad in armor or wearing leather vests. Even though a tsunami of humiliating comments gushed forth from other users nearby, Weed was determined to overcome it. Close to the spot where he had shown up was a bulletin board displaying maps and descriptions of Rosenheim Kingdom, and directions for using the basic interface. For Weed, this was the ultimate entertainment in his lifetime. He logged on to Royal Road on a daily basis, except for minimum sleeping hours, to the point of addiction. The only skill he had at that point was sword mastery, which allowed him to call on superhuman strength temporarily. "Honorable instructor, what has brought you here?" "I am here to keep you company," Weed said as he wagged his invisible tail. "What do you think of sculpture mastery?" "What the heck is sculpture mastery?" the instructor asks. Honorable instructor asked Weed. "I wonder what sort of view you have about sculpture mastery in general." At that moment, the speed of Weed's brain-racking, despite it being absurd to convert it to a numerical value, multiplied roughly by 5. "I've so far figured out that the instructor is a simple-minded and nearsighted guy. He sincerely believes that the sword is invincible, and to him, it's the highest virtue to exercise hard enough to break out in a sweat in the training hall." As soon as Weed collected his thoughts, he frowned. How can anyone learned in worthless sculpture mastery carve the moonlight? Perhaps it was a pebble in the shape of a moon? "A rumor is always prone to distortion," the instructor says. "Weed. This is the way to make friends with somebody. You don't need to squander time and money on them. You just join them in speaking ill of something at the first opportunity, and it will invoke their sympathy." A rumor that a man who had mastered sculptural art did carve the moonlight has been prevalent in Tile Royal Court of Rosenheim Kingdom for long. Look into the rumor to determine whether it is true or not. The quest must meet very tricky conditions in order to get it started. Difficulty level. E-quest requirements: close friendship with instructor reserved only for those who have not acquired sculpture mastery. Find out what it was like carving the moonlight. At difficulty level E, this quest looks like it's easy to finish. Even with all the conditions met, you still have to begin your new adventure at the Citadel of Cereborg in Rosenheim Kingdom against all odds. Take this money as a retainer, plus 2 silvers, and go to the sculpture shop first and glean information from the shop. The sculpture shop sells pretty expensive merchandises. It is one of the few shops frequently visited by noblewomen. The shopkeeper greeted Weed with a gentle smile, until he saw his outfit and changed tone of his voice. Weed asked the shopkeeper for a tour of the statues that were on display. The shopkeeper rejected him right away, sounding very annoyed. As Weed's fame was 0, and they were unacquainted, he had every right to chase him out. Weed's primary purpose for starting this game was to make money, with a capital M. The most expensive statue that is currently present is worth 30 silvers. He needed to reach the top of the ladder in order to do really well as a sculptor. Quest: return to the instructor to claim the moonlight carved by a mystery sculptor in the Cereborg Royal Palace. A mystery sculptor who is rumored to have visited the Royal Palace, though how he did it remains an enigma. The shopkeeper of a sculpture shop wondered what link existed between the two. The rumor has it that Queen Elaine was involved in the event when the sculptor presented himself in the Royal Palace. Warning: if you are found to be investigating the rumor in question, you will be exposed to hostility from royal knights. Weed could only quest inside the citadel, asking around and gathering information from people. A bard with knowledge in ancient tales and street gossip is the one whom you should ask about Queen Elaine. This matter is very sensitive, so you should not cause trouble that might lead to any defamation of the royal family. Pay a visit to a lady's maid who witnessed the day, and hear the rest of the story. He looked like a fine swordsman who was proficient in the sword, not an engraving knife. Her Highness believed in him so much that even if the world turned upside down, he would be the same eternally. Zahab promised Milady the most beautiful statue that he had ever carved under heaven. He was singing a song while he carved the moonlight. Zahab carried a sword, not the engraving knife. Zahab's sculpture mastery has reached the stage of a master. The promise between the boy and the girl was honored. 2 levels went up for a single quest, and that wasn't the end of it. A message window popped up asking if he wanted to convert to Moonlight Sculptor. You can convert to a secret class Moonlight Sculptor. The old lady's maid took something bundled up from deep inside a drawer. It resembled an ancient scalpel, and she asked, "Will you please take it?" Zahab engraving knife and a wooden statue were given to Weed by the lady's maid. Weed thought that these items were uncommon as they were left by one of the masters of sculptural art. He had a gut feeling that an irresistible destiny was drawing near. A serial quest with a difficulty level of A, rewarding 4 skills. You can learn item identification skill, sculpture mastery, repair skill, and handicraft skill. That's all for this video. Please subscribe and hit the notification icon to follow the journey of our greedy sculptor as he continue his journey in the virtual world. Thank you for the meets.